Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the incredibly high-stakes world of enterprise software delivery. Specifically, we are opening up the ultimate strategist's playbook for implementing the Guidewire insurance suite. If you've ever wondered how these massive, multi-million-dollar tech implementations actually succeed, without completely falling apart, well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to break down the strategies, the governance, and the sheer orchestration it takes to pull this off.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our agenda, which is really our roadmap for today. We'll start by mapping out the broader Guidewire ecosystem. Then we'll dive into the core insurance trio. After that, we'll explore mastering program delivery, translating business needs into tech, and finally, we'll look ahead to the future with cloud and Gen AI.
All right, Chapter 1, the Guidewire ecosystem.
So we have to start with a macro view here. Why? Because a successful deployment is literally never just about configuring the core software. Whether you're building totally from scratch, what we call a greenfield implementation, or you're just handling basic application maintenance, the real test is how you orchestrate the surrounding landscape. You're coordinating legacy data migrations, third-party API integrations, rigorous security testing, all at the exact same time. It's almost like conducting a massive orchestra.
Speaking of orchestras, let's move to Chapter 2, the core insurance trio.
Let's look at the actual instruments our master strategists are conducting. First up is Policy Center. You can think of this as both the beating heart and kind of the strict bouncer of the insurer's product. It handles the entire policy lifecycle. Right from a new business submission, it's doing the heavy lifting, running complex risk analysis, calculating rates, managing underwriting approvals, and ultimately binding the policy.
Next, we have Claims Center. Now, this application takes over during those crucial moments when a customer actually needs their insurance. It jumps in right from the first notice of loss, or FNOL as it's known, and manages the entire journey. We're talking validating coverage, assigning adjusters, setting financial reserves, and handling complex subrogation workflows, all the way through to the final settlement and closure.
And finally, there's Billing Center, which acts as the financial engine of the whole suite. It flawlessly catches all that data coming from Policy Center to manage invoices, varied payment plans, and, when necessary, delinquency and collections. It's the system that ensures the money actually flows correctly.
Now, the key takeaway here is that these applications absolutely do not exist in silos. They feed into this continuous cross-application lifecycle. A policy bound in Policy Center instantly triggers a bill in Billing Center. Later on, if a first notice of loss is logged in Claims Center, it pulls that exact policy data to verify coverage before a single dime is paid out. It is a seamless, continuous loop.
Let's shift gears to Chapter 3, Mastering Program Delivery. Now that we know the instruments, we really need to meet the conductor, the delivery manager. And I want to be super clear, this role goes way beyond standard project management. You're not just checking off tasks on a Gantt chart. You are essentially acting as the CEO of this specific delivery ecosystem. You have to balance client relationships, the P&L, risk management, and overall technical quality to ensure one thing: a complete, successful business outcome.
Let's look at a real-world scenario. Imagine your P&L dashboard lights up and shows your project is consuming 20% more effort than planned. A traditional manager might just report the overrun, right? But a strategist, they have to immediately dig into the root causes. Is this happening because of requirements volatility? Or maybe the engineering team is writing excessive custom GSU code, that's Guidewire's programming language, instead of just using the standard out-of-the-box features.
To protect those margins and stop revenue leakage in its tracks, our playbook demands strict adherence to a few core pillars. You absolutely have to enforce rigid scope control and formally manage change requests. Look, if a client wants a new feature, you don't just smile and say yes. You assess the effort, the cost, and the timeline impact, and you present it back to them as a hard commercial decision.
Which brings us to another super high-stakes scenario. What if a massive, multi-line of business program is severely delayed, say 20% behind schedule? The instinct is almost always to panic and just throw more developers at the problem. But in enterprise software, throwing bodies at a delayed project is usually a disastrous move. It honestly just creates way more communication overhead and new bottlenecks.
Instead, a master strategist formulates data-driven recovery options. You go directly to the customer with the exact cost, timeline, and risk impact of every potential path. Do we resequence the scope? Do we parallelize certain work streams? Or do we simply move non-critical features to the next release? It's all about giving the client control by providing clear, actionable data.
And that leads us to a golden rule of enterprise pre-sales. This protects both the customer relationship and your company's commercial interests.
Never sell something that delivery cannot realistically execute. The delivery manager simply has to be involved in the pre-sales process to validate all those assumptions and timelines before the ink ever dries on the contract.
Moving on to Chapter 4, Translating Business to Tech. To actually make all of this happen, we shift our focus from the delivery manager to the business analyst. They are the crucial translator, turning complex insurance needs into buildable tech. And let me tell you, that BA must constantly negotiate a very specific battlefield: configuration versus customization. A great BA will fight tooth and nail to use standard, out-of-the-box configuration. They push back hard against bespoke customization, because writing custom code just builds a massive mountain of expensive, long-term technical debt.
Let's see how this plays out in practice. Say a customer wants a brand new midterm policy endorsement process. The BA systematically traces this all the way from a high-level business outcome down to the actual tech. They're conducting stakeholder interviews, running gap analysis, writing the user stories, and finally defining highly testable acceptance criteria across the entire system.
Finally, Chapter 5, Future, Cloud and Gen AI. Looking at the cutting-edge evolution of this ecosystem, upgrading to Guidewire Cloud isn't just some simple lift-and-shift infrastructure move. No way! It is a massive business and tech transformation. It requires intense remediation of old custom code, reassessing every single API integration, and absolute rigor in regression testing. You have to ensure zero business disruption when that switch is finally flipped.
And what's absolutely fascinating right now is how forward-thinking delivery managers are deploying generative AI. They aren't just using it as a simple chatbot to ask questions. They're using it as a hardcore productivity accelerator across the entire software development lifecycle. We're talking summarizing massive requirement docs, generating test cases, assisting in code reviews, and even analyzing defect trends. It's a total game changer.
By running a Gen AI proof of concept, teams can drastically reduce their analysis effort. You basically feed in the core business requirement, and the AI drafts the user story, the acceptance criteria, and the test scenarios. This vastly accelerates the tedious groundwork, which means the engineering team can actually focus on complex problem-solving instead of paperwork.
But there is a massive caveat to all of this. Gen AI should assist delivery teams, not replace accountability. At the end of the day, no confidential customer data can ever be compromised by feeding it into an open AI model. The ultimate responsibility for a secure, successful deployment always rests entirely on human shoulders.
Well, I really hope this explainer gave you a powerful new perspective on what it actually takes to orchestrate these massive tech ecosystems. I'll leave you with a final thought to mull over. Whether you're in insurance tech or any other field entirely, how can you apply this level of rigorous governance and smart AI integration to your very next big transformation? Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep exploring.